Robert, your stuff ready? Okay. Time is now 6:30. Call this meeting to order. Mr. Hodges, if you'd like to lead us in prayer and the pledge.
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for today. Lord, thank you for this time together as a community. Lord, I pray that the decisions that we made lead to the betterment of our community as a whole. Lord, I pray that you watch over us as we make those decisions this evening. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, folks. Hold on. Let me move my microphone over so I can get a little bit. All right. As we say in every meeting, the rules of decorum are in effect. The next item will be citizens' comments. Mr. Swalsey, you're the only one on the citizens' comments. If you'll come up there, state your name and address, and turn the microphone on when you get up there, if you don't mind.
I'm sorry?
Turn the microphone on when you get up there, too. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I know you guys out there looking at the brown glasses, so it's pretty small print. Charles Schlepp, 62 Meadow Park, McLendon-Chisholm. I have previously sent out letters trying to get the info about what's happening in our neighborhood. Voicing my displeasure I have with the way the previous mayor and his cronies have jammed the winery down our throats with no regard to any of the McLendon-Chisholm citizens. I am sending the letter after having a chance to speak with Greg Rosini personally. In our conversation, I believe we enlightened each other on how the previous non-elected mayor and his cronies not only deceived the citizens affected by the new winery, but also the winery owners themselves were deceived into believing that the city thought and planned this out. The Rossinis came to the city with a plan for an economic development in McLendon-Chisholm with a construction of a winery and presented several different properties options that they were considering purchasing. At the time, the city, led by our previously non-elected mayor and his cronies, guided them to 411 South 205 as the best location, despite the existing city plans, specifically an only 2-year-old future use plan, clearly showing this is not the desired location for a commercial development. In fact, the city's Town Planning and Zoning Commission further reiterated this to the council by denying the zoning and the land use in charge. In change request. But like everything else, the previous leaders did not listen to the constituents. Now, previous mayor is trying to blame the city planner for how this was handled when ultimately the city council and the mayor had the final say. The list of mistakes the previous mayor and his cronies made just on this little part of city planning is appalling. And
Go ahead, Charles.
sorry. No problem. What's that? I apologize.
No, you're fine.
The list of mistakes that the mayor had made, the decisions, I can only hope that the council and the mayor will follow the plan in place for the city and at least notify the citizens, because ultimately we're the ones that have to live here. So here we are, a group of owners of a winery, and together we are forced to live with the situation. I feel the best way to protect our property is to communicate with Greg and Carol Rosini. Some of the things that I spoke to Greg about were the daily rentals, how the issues of noise, lights, obscene language were unacceptable. But the most important thing was the unsafe feeling I have in my own backyard with my 5 and 6-year-old. Not knowing who is over there every day. We also talked about how I would fight him if he tried to build anything on the back part of the property. He was very receptive to my family's concerns. The Rossinis have made some changes since I have voiced my concerns. They have removed the outdoor speakers. They are working on cutting down the light pollution, and they have addressed the obscene language to their renters. He said that he would to call them if we had any other issues as far as the concerns of the daily rental and the safety issues that I asked about. He asked me if we would give him a few weeks to wind down the already previously booked rentals. He also mentioned that he had considered living in the house with the vineyard in the front yard before all the movement against the winery. I told him I thought it would go a long way and give him comfort to the neighbors if he chose to live there. So I concluded at this time that I am going to put faith in my neighbor, as I do think he and his wife have more concern about the neighbor than the city has shown to the citizens at this point. Thank you. Sorry for the difficult. I really need my glasses. Getting old stuff.
Oh, absolutely. 2 minutes.
You'll have to fill out one of the sheets to.
No, I needed that.
Yeah, there's a sheet in the back. If you want to fill it out real quick and hand it to the police, they absolutely. Lisa.
I'll just be a second.
And that's fine.
I'll just be a second. I want to follow up on what Bill said.
Bill, just take your name and your address, sir.
Bud Wilder, 431 FM 550 Norfolk.
Can you push the button on there? It's not on. One of those 2 mics. There you go. Thank you.
Got it. I moved out here in 85. Okay. Was on the planning zoning committee for probably 4 years. Late 80s, early 90s. And when I moved out here, I had no idea I'd be moving next to a place. It was a day rental place. And I'm sure the people had real good intentions, but the noise and the lights are kind of out of control. Okay. My house is about 150, 200 yards away from the pool. When I was on the committee, I never had the city council overrule what we recommended, like was done by the previous city council. Not sure why, but it was overruled. So I just want to express my displeasure on having a day rental place next to the property that I own. That's it.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. And that's Mr. Wilder?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wilder. All right. Any other citizens' comments for this evening? Going once? Going twice? Approval of minutes for the July 23rd, 2019 City Council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll approve those minutes.
You have a motion, do I have a motion to approve? Okay, you have a motion, do I have a second? Okay. Okay, a motion and a second to approve the July 23rd, 2019 City Council meeting minutes. Any discussion? All in favor to approve the minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Show that unanimous. All right, we're going to move on to the next item. Discussion and action regarding an ordinance approving an amendment to the annual service and assessment plan update for Sonoma Public Improvement District. Ms. Lisa?
Yes, this is an amendment to a previously filed service and assessment plan. And our PID administrators, this is Mary Petty, and she's here to present the information.
Mayor and council, good to see you again. You approved the AU service and assessment plan associated with the sale of bonds. We were hired a couple weeks prior to that, and so that bond transaction proceeded forward. We have since audited that service and assessment plan. So this has been signed off by your bond counsel, your financial advisor, the developers council, and the developer. And so these changes we want to walk through with you in detail, very short detail, with a presentation, and Vanessa's just vice president in our firm. I'm going to have her give that presentation because I get to run to a public hearing on a really popular item. Just down the road. So I'm going to let her walk you through that, but I wanted to go ahead and tell you that we've audited it. Everything's fine. We just need to correct some details, and we have the developer sign off, and the document in front of you has the developer's signature on the landowner's consent, and that didn't come until this afternoon, but we wanted to just make sure that we were taking in time all the pieces together. So I'm going to let Vanessa walk you through those changes. She should be able to answer any questions on you. She actually performed the audit on your SAP, so she's well versed in this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, council members, hello. Lisa is going to help with my clicking today, thankfully. The first thing that I want to walk through with you guys is the removal of the major improvement area excluding phase 1 assessment. This was levied in the original SAP in 2015. Assessments go stale after 2 years pursuant to the statute. There was nothing collected in 2016, nothing collected in 2017, nothing collected in 2018. However, it was lowered, and we believe that has to do with the phase 2 being levied. They took a portion of the major improvements and attributed it to that bond issue. So it has officially been about 4 years. It was removed in the 2019 SAP update approved earlier this year, and we just confirmed the removal of that. So by statute, that has been removed, and going forward, if we levy any more bonds on the remainder of the property, we will attribute their share of the major improvements to that, so that'll be covered. You can go next, Lisa. The next one is a simple fix. The previous map, if you see the circles, it had stated that phase 1C, the green on the right, was actually located within the phase 1 boundaries, which made it look like it was getting benefit from the phase 1 assessments. It was not. Phase number 1C is actually in phase number 2. It's a little confusing. But improvement area number 1C / phase 1C, it is actually within phase 2, so we've corrected the map to be a little more clear, showing the blue is phase 2, the red is phase 1, and the green is included in phase 2, but it is actually improvement area number 1C. Next up, we have the landowner consent to increased assessments. Mary mentioned this when she was talking about the SAPs. We did just get that earlier today. So if you flip to the very back, it's in Exhibit C. The landowner has signed. Between the 2018 SAP update to the 2019 SAP update, as you can see, there were 2 unit increases between improvement area number 2. And so because of that, the assessment per equivalent unit was not altered. It was left the same, therefore it caused an under levy on the allocation for improvement number 1C and an over levy for improvement area number 2, which usually we cannot over levy, but because it's one landowner and they understood what happened, they signed the consent form stating that they consent to that $36,000 over levy. So we are completely okay there going forward. And then last but not least, we have the inclusion of the assessment rolls by parcel. The 2019 SAP update approved earlier this summer did not have an actual assessment roll for parcel by parcel. they had the annual installment schedule showing the life of project, but they didn't have each parcel within the district that needs to be billed and what their actual annual installment is for each year. And Rockwall CAD actually needs the parcel number and the amount due to put on the tax bills. So what we did is we went ahead and created a full parcel by parcel list of everybody in the PID. So if they want to pull up that SAP that you have, they can look up their tax ID and see exactly what their assessment is for due January 31st, 2019. And then we also have that on our website as well for them to access if they want to look at that. But yeah, that is all that we really have. We've fixed all of those and everything seems to be running smoothly so far. And if you have any questions, I can definitely answer.
Basically, it's just an update and some correction.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, one of the microphones is dying.
Are those supposed to be read?
At the 1 to year, yeah, and then if you'll just turn the other one off. For whatever reason, the batteries, some days they last, some days they don't.
Thank you.
All right, council, you have any questions for her on the presentation at this point? All right. Entertain a motion to approve the preferred this amendment to the service and assessment plan.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the amendment to the annual service and assessment plan as stated for the Sonoma Verde pit.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I've got a motion, a second. Is there any discussion on that? There's no discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that unanimous? All right, moving on to 6.2, discussion and direction of staff regarding regarding all matters related to the proposed budget for fiscal year starting October 1st, 2019 and ending September 30th, 2020, including but not limited to expected revenues and expenditures, debt obligations, effective tax rate, rollback rate, and setting a public hearing date. Ms. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
The outcome for tonight, the budget and tax rate are related, so sorry, our city attorney, can I talk about the same time?
Ma'am, thank you very much. I'm sorry if I didn't say that. Thank you for your time.
Tax rate together.
Yeah, I think they're, no,
Okay.
they're going to fix it.
Okay, so what the outcome of tonight needs to be is I have to send the maximum tax rate notice to paper by tomorrow morning. So after we talk about the budget a little bit, anything we want to include or take out of our budget worksheet. I also have Carl Crawley, the planner, here to talk about comp plan a little bit and pricing for that. They will requested. But at the end of the day, I need a maximum tax rate number to put into the paper. Once that's advertised, you can back off of that tax rate, but you will not be able to go higher than that tax rate. So that number is kind of important. And then we're also going to be setting dates for the public hearings for both the budget and the tax rate tonight. So that's kind of where we need to end up by the end of the day. So since Mr. Crawley is here, would you like to start with Mr. Crawley to talk about the comp plan, proposed pricing for update?
Absolutely. I know this time is important. There you go. How are you tonight, sir?
Carl Crawley, 900 Jackson Street, Dallas, Texas. For the three of y'all that were here last night, we discussed just looking at the comp plan to see if we need an update or don't need an update, and if so, do we need a whole update or parts update? And I don't know if Lisa, did you provide them with this? What we talked about is I think the first thing that needs to happen, and what I've done on all these rates is put an hourly not to exceed amount, because we could get into one of those and say, have one meeting with you or an advisory committee and say, hey, we like the way it is, and that's, boom, there ain't no reason to spend thousands of dollars for, hey, it looks okay now, we don't need to change that. But that's why I think the first thing we need to do is we talked about last night, is a visioning statement. Do we want to be where we wanted to be 4 or 5 years ago? Is that the direction we want to go? And that can sort of set the tone for everything else. And that's that first item there, and it could be lots of meetings or just a couple of meetings. That sort of thing, again, with the hourly rate there. And then we talked about there's a lot of individual sections in the comp plan. Some of them there's no reason to change. We talked about demographics. There's no reason to look at that because the new census comes out in a year and a half. What are we going to do between now and a year and a half? Maybe in a year and a half we look at it again. We talked about last night, or I did most of the talking, I guess, but one of the things that's coming up is 205 and TxDOT and how that's going to change all the commercial land, zoning, and everything in the city. And there's really not a component that deals specifically with that. So I think that's an important thing that needs to be handled sooner than later. TxDOT is slow, but eventually they'll get around to things as they always do. And then the other new sort of component in there is maybe an economic development component. Where do we want to go? Do we want to start striving to find new businesses? We even talked about an industrial component in some of the areas more towards the Kaufman, the Terrell end of the town, where the school district is probably not lending itself to new residential development as much as the Rockwall end. Do we want to look at some industrial uses in there? And I don't mean General Motors coming here or something like that, but more commercial type development. And then finally, if we decide to do things, there's obviously an adoption phase, going to the community and getting that input, going through the Planning Commission and the City Council. And we talked about last night, is it just the council that we deal with? Do we appoint a committee? Smaller committee, better than a bigger committee, we can get more things done. So I just sort of gave you, since I was tasked with a turnaround of less than 24 hours, a sort of a shopping list of some ideas. You know, if you put money in the budget and don't spend it, obviously that's fine, but I think there's some pick and choose type stuff. I think from our talking in the office, when we see the zoning map and the comp plan and 205 and changing that, I think that, and the conversations that Lisa and I are having with developers once a week or something, dealing with commercial uses and stuff, that's something I think needs to get a handle on sooner than later, because TxDOT will sort of mess with a lot of that commercial zoning up and down there. And strips were good a long time ago, but there's new ways to do things. And then we talked about last night, come September 1, you get out of the aesthetics business. So some of the things that we need to figure out how that's going to happen. There's some webinars. I'll give Lisa some ideas of some webinars from TML and other places. The APA are putting out webinars on what can and can't be done and the ramifications of that. I know we're going to study on it because it does have ramifications. But there's maybe methodology to still keep some of those safeguards in there. So that's it. I guess answer any questions you have. I just wanted to give you a shopping list. So.
Questions?
Carl,
Sure.
questions for you. So, I don't want to assume this, but you listed $120 an hour for that first visioning segment. Is each?
Yeah, that's our, we have
$120 an hour?
Yeah, we have a rate schedule of, I think it's 90, 120, and 160. 90 is our tech people and GIS stuff and things like that. That 120 is sort of a mid-range. We not just do it that way. It's not a formal public hearing as much as a gathering kind of stuff. That's a good range for that. And obviously, if we get into it and we say we're doing a commercial thing, and we say 10,000, and we're just having neighborhood meetings, we're sucking up. If we're out here every other night, which I am out here every other night, then then I gave her the wrong amount of money. I needed that anything more. That's why that safeguard is there. I know you have a budget. If it takes me $10,000 or $20,000 and I got $10,000 in there, then I'm eating 10. So.
Based on the initial overview, let's say that we decide to proceed with this, how would you break it down if we wanted to look at a little bit of economic development and commercial?
Well, some of those overlap, and I think we could probably combine those. It's if we combine a couple of them, you get the, if we're talking about two subjects, I'm here for one meeting versus a meeting and then another meeting and another meeting. So we can work towards combining some of those, if it makes sense. I think really the visioning thing, as we talked about that most last night, is we might get into 2 or 3 meetings with y'all and some some community members and we just go, hey, we're still doing good. We like the vision that was in there, and it's 4 or 5 hours a time, and then we go, okay, you there. It's a bad mic day, isn't it?
Well, there are days where the batteries just don't want to go off.
You're just electric, Carl.
Well, we'll leave that alone. Now I've just completely lost my train of thought.
We're combining two.
Yeah, combining two, and so I still think that visioning is the key. But again, if we've got the right vision, then that may come into a couple $1,000s versus $7,500. Then if you've got a budget, we can always keep my hands to myself. It's not me.
You're fine. Just go ahead and keep.
Okay, I'll just keep soldiering through.
Yes, sir.
So, if you put a budget in there for X number of dollars, then we can shift how many things we do, and if one of them comes in at a couple $1,000 and we need to shift it to another one, that's how y'all's budget works. I understand that. Because we may get into something and say, we don't care about that. We thought we did. Let's move on to the next one.
Any more questions for him? Thank you. Would you do me a favor, just push the button on that and turn it off? Thank you. Oh, there you go. Thank you. It's batteries up. I'm not that way.
I guess the question becomes, do you want to put a number in there for the comp plan update?
For what?
For a comp plan update, you want to include up to, I think, if you add it all together, it's about $35,000. And he said you didn't have to do all of it, you could kind of pick and choose and define that comp plan later. But for budgeting purposes, did you want to include that amount?
Council? And we have a city that we have to look at the vision for the future.
The two things that concern me the most is obviously the change to the 205. We as a city we need to plan that versus allowing 205 to make those changes.
Yeah, we have to lead and decide what we are going to be, not let something else dictate what we get stuck with or left with.
Because again, the business strip down 205 was the thing to do 20, 30 years ago, but it's not necessarily, maybe not the best way to do it anymore.
Right.
Carl, one other question I forgot to ask you, sir. And you may have answered this last time. I want to make sure that I get it right. As far as your timeline, if we do a refresh on the comp plan, what would be your timeline on another refresh or a complete redo? What's the lifespan?
Well, I think it needs to be refreshed or updated. I think your comp plan needs to be updated probably every 5 years just to get you out further in advance. Obviously, you're growing faster than pick a city that's not growing as fast.
So it's very similar like a business plan.
Right. If you're IBM or a big old company, it doesn't they're not growing as fast. Hopefully they're growing for their sake, but they're not worried about some doubling in size. And likely you could be doubling in size in 5 years.
Absolutely.
It's not uncommon for cities that are growing, that are about our size, to at least have some sort of review 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Look at a more of an overhaul, maybe around the 5 years, but at least having a cursory review by someone around the 3 or 4 year mark, just so you can kind of start having an idea if in year 5 you're going to do something. So,
and that's when you get into the chance where 205 that you mentioned, if 205 is not going to be changed or anything, that's not something we're studying right now, but that's something that's on the near horizon that could have a drastic effect. Potential, it may not have a drastic effect, but it's something you need to get a handle on. That once that's studied, 205 is probably not going to get improved again for another 10 or 15 or 20 years. That then, okay, you've now settled that, and then we'll worry about something else, and we talked about last night that not part of this, but something that needs to be thought of in the near future is you've got a lot of large PDs that were done in the 2007 recession period that aren't going to get built that way.
Right.
You know, that's something that needs to be, it's not in the comp plan, but it could lead into the comp plan, and that visioning stuff is you've got some stuff out there that by sheer density are less than an acre for just size. You know, the lots may be bigger, but you've got a lot of area. That's something that needs, do we want to be there, or where do we want to be? We mentioned last night, do we want to be in an acre and a half, or do we want to be something? That's something that handled in the comp plan. And then in the future, zoning and other things need to be updated to take care of that.
You know, we have the economic development committee. How appropriate would be to charter them to determine the vision for the city? I thought that's what they were supposed to be doing, but what do y'all think about that?
Don't have an answer right now because we don't have a status on what the committee has done at this moment.
But it seems like that would be a great place to start with the members of that economic development committee and perhaps a member of planning and zoning and a member of board of adjustments to start looking at what the vision for the city is. I'm not sure that we need to have a consultant do the run the brainstorming sessions, come up with a plan, that kind of thing, unless that would make us get it done because that we've paid money to get it done. I would like to see if we could do it in-house with what we have as our existing resources at this point, and if we find that we're not getting anywhere, then we hire outside. But I think it would be prudent for us to use existing resources.
I think we need to at least ask them. They may have a big plan, we just don't know it yet. So until we ask,
Fair enough.
because I would hate if they've worked and worked and worked, and then we do something and then they're like, what the heck?
So if we could possibly set up a work session with.
Let me contact who's supposed to be kind of overseeing that committee and see before we do that.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I will share with you that a year and a half ago, we did task the P&Z with trying to update. They got a little bit busy with developments and it kind of got set aside, but they really struggled on their own to try to pull it together. So even if you do a lot of the work committee level, you may still want to bring in Carl's team for advice here and there,
Right.
or to tie it up in a nice pretty package towards the end. So even if you don't budget for all of this, you may want to budget at least some for it.
Sure.
Just a thought.
Well, what I like on it, of course, the council is going to make this decision, is I like the thought of having it there, budgeted for, but if we don't use it, there's no harm, no foul. If we budgeted for it, but we don't use it, because if we come back and, weeks, months, whatever later and decide, oh, maybe we should do it this way, we've allocated for it, so it's not trying to figure out how to make it happen. Because what you're asking right now is just, are we going to budget for it? Doesn't necessarily mean we have to use it. Correct? Council? What do you think?
I agree with Councilman Kivett. If we can get
If
it,
we can do it in-house,
no problem. In-house, then that's awesome. That's great.
But if we have to use some from out of house,
I think at some point, we'll probably have to lean on
I agree.
Outside references.
Why don't we just do whatever it's top is supposed to be?
the top's what, 35?
Just go half of that.
Council?
So Carl, what would be the max you would say overall for the fresh would be? Sorry to keep bringing you back up.
I need the steps. You mean like take the existing plan and just refresh the whole thing?
Your ideal version of refresh, what would that look like?
You know, I would think we could probably do it for not much more than that, because that's the main guts of that. Probably 50. Because I think some of that component is the 205 stuff, which is a new component. I'm tooting my own horn, but I think that needs to be done. And be honest, I don't know if you're economic. I don't know the people. They could be all planners and the economic analysts and stuff like that. But I think there needs to be some outside input. You've got to get information from TxDOT and all that kind of stuff. So I think that I think the engineer even gets involved in, because with TxDOT and curb cuts and all that kind of stuff, it's almost what I want to call an area plan, but it's a long, skinny area. It's a specialized thing that almost would be a standalone type scenario versus the comp plan. Even if you did no update to any of the rest of it, I think that needs to be done just because. And could it be done next year? Yeah, I don't know what the TxDOT's not going to be in and out in the next fiscal year or not. If they started today, it's going to be longer than that and not start today. But I think that's something that, because that has a ramification of then changing zoning and things of taking or changing people's rights, and that gets into a little more difficult, obviously. So that's probably all the way through, including the zoning component of that, is a 2 to 3 year process, I would think. Just because some people are going to be TxDOT, now obviously they're compensated for it and everything. It's not like they're just not going to get any money out of the deal. But now their property is probably not worth much of anything commercially, because they've gone from this wide to this wide, and there's not a whole lot of this wides being in commercial. And you need to look at nodes versus strips.
I mean, I think I would prefer to hold off for a year. Our plan is 3 years old now. I prefer to hold off for a year, try to get our in-house team together to work it, and if that doesn't meet with success, then next year we put it in there.
Then readdress it.
I agree. For 3 years out, do we even want to budget for anything?
I would recommend not budgeting this year.
Okay. Lisa, did you get that?
Yes, sir.
What other questions on that portion?
Ray couldn't be here tonight, he had another engagement, but he's going to take the worksheet that you all worked on yesterday, and he's going to update those numbers. You asked me to come back with a couple of changes. Public notices, if you deduct out what we put for the PID, you could take out about $1,800 for public notices.
Could you go to the line number so we're
Let me see here.
311?
One second. It's not 311. I mean, 422.
Okay, yeah.
So I think you could safely take out 1,800. And then keep in mind too that the remaining amount there of that 10.9, if you take out 1,800, then the rest of that, most of it is going to be, a little bit of it's going to be our publications, but most of it is going to be recouped from application fees.
Okay.
And then as far as postage, you asked me to look at that. If you look at stamps and what we spent for postcards for the survey, it was between $3,500 and $4,000. So I think you could, the postcards would have come out of printed materials, and then the stamps may have its own line under postage. But I think we can adjust the budget down, maybe $3,500 for those things if we don't do another survey.
So 3,500 total instead of 5,000 total?
I think you could reduce it by 3,500.
Oh, okay. So, You don't have what the total expenditures are then, because Ray hasn't updated.
Ray has it. What you did yesterday though, I mean, we juggled back and forth a little bit on a couple of things, but I think she ended up taking 12,000 out of his that ended up being kind of duplicate entries. And then we just have a few other things here that don't really add up to large amounts. So I think we can probably just clean this up. The budget itself, once we kind of get it cleaned up, I do have to file that in my office by the end of the next week to kind of stay on schedule. You can still adjust it after that, because you won't be adopting it until September. But I still have to file something in my office for public inspection. So what we would do is, based on any other input that you give us tonight, we would clean this up, and then we would file it in my office. And that's what we would show the public, we'll put it on the website. And then everybody will just understand that we'll still have public hearings on it, and there's still room for discussion before adoption.
Question?
Well, I just feel like I'm looking at a piece of paper that's outdated and I don't know what the proposed budget is. Because we made changes. And I feel ill-prepared to make a tax rate without dated information.
I think you only took out about 18,000. And then the other question is going to be what you do with salaries.
So what do we need to do?
Question?
Well, I need to firm up the number as much as I can. So at some point, you may want to recess and discuss salaries and come out with an overall number for me to put in the budget for increase, decrease, or stay neutral.
Is there any way we can get a hold of Ray and ask him to email you what he's worked on?
He is in another.
He's with another
Prior
client
engagement.
tonight. It takes him a little bit to update the worksheets.
Well, what if we go over what we added so we all can be comfortable with what we added to the budget?
Okay, well, let's, before
wanna
we
do
do
that?
that, it is 7:12. We're gonna take a minute because this young man has to use the restroom. So we'll recess, give us 10 minutes max. to be able to effectively give that number. So at this point, we're going to pull off of 6.2 and go to 9.1, recess to executive session in accordance with Texas General Code 551.074. Personnel matters to deliberate the criminal employment evaluation and assignment duties, discipline, and dismissal of public officer, employee, city administrator / city secretary, assistant city secretary, building permit technician, fire chief, fire marshal, assistant fire chief, and firefighter. That's enough. So it's 7:18. We'll reserve or recess into executive session. Get everything back up and running? Alright, it is 7:48. Back out of executive session. No action taken in there on anything in there. We'll move back to 6.2. Excuse me. When we were talking about numbers and all that, council, will we consider budgeting for 7% adjustment on salaries?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion to,
Can I get clarification? So 7% for all employees, including fire, or?
on the fire department, they've been with us, what, roughly a year?
Would it be October 20th, is there?
Yeah, I would say, and it's nothing against them at this moment, but I think all other personnel at this point.
Based on the time, correct?
Yeah, based on the
I
time.
just need clarification from you.
Right.
All right.
So do I have a motion on that? What about second?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
7%.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that? I'm sorry. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on that? And just because we're budgeting for a 7% adjustment does not mean that we are going to use it. We are just budgeting for that fact at this point in time.
It's a tunable number.
Right. If there's no discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, show that unanimous. All right. Have we covered everything in 6.2 enough? We can move on to 6.3.
The only other thing I need you to think about is, we kind of talked about a repair replacement fund. Did you want me to, I can bring you the fund balance policy?
Yes, ma'am.
But not at the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am, if you would. I think we all need to look at that. When the fund and repair, how did you describe it?
I just need to make sure that you don't want to do anything over and above what's already within the surplus number.
Well, no.
Okay. That's really all I needed. The other adjustments were fairly minor. I mean, I added them up while you were in there, and we're talking like maybe 10,300 less overall
All right.
than what you saw yesterday.
If there's nothing else on 6.2, moving on to 6.3, discussion and action regarding approving a proposed maximum tax rate for, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, but you need to set the public hearing dates.
Oh, yes, ma'am, that was the
Sorry
thing.
about that.
What, let me pull it back up. Which one of the things? There it is.
Was it August 27th, based on the calendar you published? August 27th for the first one and September 10th for the second?
For the public hearing for the budget would be the September 10th, you just need the one.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to just, somebody move to notice for a public hearing for the budget on September 10th.
So we only need one?
One for the budget, two for tax.
Oh, okay.
So the way I kind of have it scheduled is, you hold your budget hearing on the same night that you do the second public hearing on the tax rate. So at your next meeting, you have the first of the tax rate public hearings.
Okay.
And then on the 10th, you would have the second tax rate hearing and the budget hearing. And then you don't adopt that same night. You have to wait at least like 3 days, but you're not going to have a meeting until the 24th.
Right.
And that's within the time frame to adopt. So I've got it down for adoption on the 24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone just wants to move in second to,
I make a motion that we have the public hearing on the budget for September 10th, 2019.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, show that unanimous. All right. Are we missing anything else on 16?
You're done.
All right, discussion and action regarding approving a proposed maximum tax rate for legal notice requirements, setting public hearing dates as appropriate and related matters. In discussing this and the number that will be proposed, this is going to be proposed to fund, for funding of our public safety costs, which is our fire department, as well as, cost of doing business, city personnel, and the max tax rate number was based on information received from our CPA. I would suggest that, or I propose a motion that the proposed tax rate for fiscal year 2019-2020 be set at 16.5 per $100 valuation, and that 2 public hearings to receive public input regarding the tax rate be scheduled. And that's the correct dates, August 27th and September 10th.
Appreciate some information, given to us by Ray. And again, the information that we have at this point, there's still some answers, questions to be answered.
Yeah, because that rate we can't lower the rate once we can lower the rate once we set it, but we can't set the rate and then increase it. That's why we're looking at that number.
You want a little breakdown, so 14 cents would be for maintenance and operations, and then you've got 2 cents, almost 2.5 for debt.
Okay. And I can make a motion on that, can I not?
That's got to be.
Oh, it's gotta be a council
So I'll
member.
make a motion to set the
Proposed max.
proposed tax rate to 16.5% per $100 of value.
Okay. All right, do I have a second?
Does that motion include the public hearings for the dates?
I'm sorry, yes. Here, sorry.
Including
I got it.
Including the hearings for 9/10. Okay. I move that we propose maximum tax rate for fiscal year 19-20 to be set at 16.5 per $100 valuation. And that includes 2 public hearings to receive public input regarding tax rate to be scheduled for August 27, 2019, as well as September 10, 2019.
All right, there's the motion. Do we have a second? Going once. There's the motion on the table. Do I have a second on that motion setting the max tax rate at 16.5?
I'll second the motion for the tax rate.
Okay. Now open for discussion. Is there any discussion?
Okay, I seconded it because I wanted to make sure we had time to discuss it and just let it die. Didn't let the motion die. I think I'm concerned because we don't have an accurate budget worksheet in front of us that we can actually look at, nor can we determine exactly what amount would be going to the reserve fund that we're just about ready to establish. But I also don't want to put the city in peril because we didn't set a high enough maximum tax rate. I guess that's my concern about the whole thing.
Yes, ma'am.
We will be able to revisit the budget, correct?
Absolutely. Over the next couple of meetings in the public hearings, yes, we will be able to look at that. And when we look at that, that does mean that is just the maximum number. That doesn't mean that is our final number. That number can come down.
Because we can't go higher.
once we set the max number, we cannot raise it,
Yeah.
but we can lower.
We won't be voting on the budget till September 24th.
Right.
So we can still talk
So
about
we
it
have
all the way till.
roughly, what's today, the 13th? A month and 10 days? Roughly 6 weeks, that's right.
We can do more workshops and stuff.
If we need to.
Yeah, because I really want to iron out the whole reserve component aspect, since this is the first time that we're doing it. We're basically changing the way that we do things, and I just want to understand exactly what the impact is, and I want to make sure that we adequately fund the fire department, and we set our city up for success in the future, and I think this 16.5 is a good start, and can always go down.
And yeah, I think just to reiterate what Warner stated, this is just a starting point. We have to have something to work from. Again, based on the information that we have to this point from Ray. Again, looking at the future needs of our community, I think that's a good starting point.
It's conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. Based on the numbers that Ray shared with us, I think it's still fairly conservative, but it also allows us to begin to plan for some reserves, which we don't have right now.
We need to fund for equipment or capital equipment.
I think my concern is just like getting there and not being able to fund it just because we didn't go high enough.
Right.
You know, it's like my nails are right there on the cliff and I just can't get up there, so we just didn't get there. We didn't raise it enough. So at least we've got cushion.
Absolutely. If there's no other discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So that unanimous? All right. We've done a whole lot of updating the discussion direction of staff, so I don't know that number 7 really has anything under it. Moving on to number 8, reports and announcements from my position. For those of you listening, Senator Hall will be here Saturday at 4 p.m. for a town hall meeting. Along with a lot of the other government officials that this time of the year they get out and they do town hall meetings explaining what's going on at their level of government. I encourage everybody to show up for that. I would love to hear what he has to say that's been going on at that level. But he will be here at 4 o'clock on Saturday. Hope to see our citizens there. The other side of that is some of our school districts have started school already this week. Some of our others will start Thursday. Be aware of the kiddos out there in the bus stops and kids going back and forth to school, whether they're driving or whether they're walking, riding bikes, whatever. Be conscious that they're out there and starting school for the new year. We don't want to see media coverage of somebody being hurt. Ms. Kippett?
The brick campaign's going really well. We probably have at least 50 bricks ordered already. I want to shoot for another 50. People are ordering 4 or 5 at a time, which is really wonderful. So I just want to impress that the deadline for the first installation is September 13th. So you've got a month, Mayor, to get your brick ordered.
I know, and I keep forgetting that we have some I got to get ordered.
So there's order forms in the back of the room on taking them to different venues, taking the order forms to different venues. So it's going really well. I went to the road consortium meeting last month with Lisa, and we are trying to meet with the Rockwall County contractor to talk about the 205 turn bays.
Okay.
He's a hard guy to get a hold of. I tried again today. He's just very difficult to reach, so I hope to try to catch him at that.
Guys, for those of you, I'm not used to the words. Does everybody understand what you mean by turn bay? It's a turn lane. I had never heard that quite like that before. It's talking about turn lanes off of 205 into our subdivisions.
Yep. I guess I'm talking like an engineer.
There's nothing wrong with that. I just had never heard that term before until recently.
Yeah. So anyway, that's still a work in progress. We haven't made any progress, but it's a work in progress. And that's all I have.
Right. Three.
NC50, we've got a meeting this Friday. And
You have one or you have
we
one?
will be having.
Okay.
Sorry, we will be having one. And things are going really well. We will be looking for volunteers to help work it a little closer to the date. But right now we've got a lot planned and it's going quite well. Very
Nice.
It is October 19th.
I will remind my daughter to them if she would be
Yeah, she's on my
well
list.
to do something like that.
Her and Emily are on my list.
Good, good. Mr. Bloom is not here. Mr. Dahl? You don't have anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
And I skipped over one by accident. Mr. Hodges?
No update to report.
Okay. I apologize. I was jumping around there. All right. Seeing that we have completed everything on here, it is 8:04. Meeting adjourned. In all the worldly things I do lately, I'm certified in youth mental health first aid.
Really?
I know how to talk to kids having a meltdown. Let's put it that way.
Don't let people know that the babysitting for kids.
Here's the thing, I've been a mental health peace officer for 15 years now. Everybody else goes, oh, you're the guy that knows how to talk to them. Guess what? And sometimes I just look at them and go, my leg hurts. I had to give myself a shot.
For what? Does that mean you're going to be happy?
I hate giving myself shots. And, but when I first went to do it, it didn't go very well. I had to do it a second time.
I don't know how to
My legs were also.
It's like they have insulin and all that. Now they have pumps.
Oh, I thought yeah. That's just so scary. I didn't change the leg so much. I'm changing to where the pinch hurts. So I can't get it.
Shelley will still be talking about it.
Juniors wouldn't be along. It's okay, it's okay. So, I didn't know.
Now, it shouldn't cost me. I'm a little more conscious to what can make me grumpy. This time.
You've been strong a lot.
So, you're talking about like a yeah.
Because my neighbor.
I have to say that.
It is.
if I can catch them at home.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just one hour.
Let's go first next week.
Well, she may go just a minute.
Yeah, I think my grandmother actually has Kelly, who is their daughter's phone number. And she helps with everything, so
CDs, your new CDs. We won't report on any of that stuff if we don't have 100% control. Because they have custodians. We're going to. We'll give statements. Anything from this bank is not in control. It's still. It's too difficult. And then in Margaret, I said, we've had one great increase. This is going to have another one, and you're telling me these guys are still honoring that 2.5 rate deal? That's what they're telling you until you actually move the money there. That's not gonna happen.
Oh, hey. Way better.
Who's actually having disagreements with the treasurer? He just wanting to do it in 6 and 9 months, and I'm going, these rates on this. And then somebody else is going, well, 2 or 3 years now, and I'm like, no. Because they are going to go up. And plus, we might be getting money. And I started doing this thing and realized that was actually, it was good that I walked in the rate, started to drop. Then I got to looking at it and I'm like, well, we get most of our money in just like in December or February. And that's when some of the CDs were going to do. It really should have been due on February or December. You know, when the money's going to be low. Well, that's the thing, we've got common sense, playground, and we guard it, which the only thing that's guarded is crickets that are inside of it. The monument, the gates. Well, okay, Mark.
Oh.